What's going on, guys? Welcome back. I know it's been a minute since my last video, but life is busy, and to put it simply,
there were matters that required my attention.
So I'm back to talk more about The Bad Batch and bring you my 2 music analysis videos for Season 3 now that the show has come to an end. I'm assuming that a decent chunk of you watching this video know that my Crosshair music analysis from over a year ago got mentioned twice by Screen Crush in 2 of their videos covering The Bad Batch Season 3. So I've gotten plenty of comments flooding in from people telling me to make a part 2, and even a video analyzing the music of Doctor Hemlock. Alexander, my guy, this one's for you, and everyone else who might have been interested in seeing a breakdown of Doctor Hemlock's theme throughout The Bad Batch. Now, right out of the gate, I'll give my hot take. Not only do I think Dr. Hemlock is the best Star Wars villain we've seen since Palpatine in the prequel trilogy, but I think his theme is one of the all-time greatest villain themes in Star Wars, up there with the likes of Thrawn and, yes indeed, the Imperial March. Hemlock's theme is different from that of any other Star Wars villain, because, unlike the Imperial March, for example, it isn't outwardly loud and bombastic, it's menacing in a more subtle and psychological way, just like Hemlock himself. My Crosshair analysis from a year ago was a bit more difficult because Crosshair has at least 3 themes that comprise his character's journey. Hemlock, on the other hand, only has 1 main theme. However, it is comprised of 3 different musical components. The first of which is what I can only describe as this distorted synth drone, or bass drop, you might say. It is worth noting that this sound is consistently used in association with Mount Tantus. Every time we see the mountain, this sound can be heard. So it isn't exactly a part of Hemlock's theme, but it is also used for him as well. I just won't be talking about every instance of this sound being used throughout the show, and only when it is relevant to Hemlock as a character. The second part of Hemlock's theme is this chord progression, or set of notes, which sounds like this. And finally, the third part of his theme is what I'm going to call the main melody, which is what we most commonly hear when Hemlock is on screen. Now that you have a clear understanding of the 3 main musical components of Hemlock's theme, let's begin this analysis with the very first time we meet Dr. Hemlock in episode 11 of Season 2. From the first establishing shot of Mount Tantus, we hear that low droning sound accompanied by that unsettling chord pattern, which eventually leads us into the main melody once Hemlock arrives on Tantus and begins interrogating Nala Se. The eerie pattern that introduced us to Hemlock at the beginning of the episode returns later on once the Empire arrives to recapture the Zillo Beast, representing the Imperial forces under Hemlock's command. And at the very end of the episode, after Kaminoan Prime Minister Lama Su is transported to Tantus and informs Hemlock of Omega's importance to Nala Se, Hemlock's theme begins to swell, growing in intensity, communicating to us that he is going to be our new primary villain from this point on, before it resolves to a more quiet piano rendition of his theme as the episode draws to a close. Next time we see Hemlock in Season 2, Episode 14, Tipping Point, As Hemlock enters Crosshair's cell, so does his theme, and it lasts all throughout the scene as he interrogates Crosshair. Later in the episode, after he successfully knocks out Crosshair using his specially engineered toxic gas, we hear the low droning sound as well as the chord pattern from his theme. Now, I already talked about this briefly in part 1 of my Crosshair music analysis from last year, but at the end of this episode comes one of my favorite musical moments in the entire series, because we are treated to what I can only describe as a musical battle between Crosshair and Dr. Hemlock. The scene begins with Hemlock returning to Crosshair's cell, accompanied by his theme, on what I can only assume is a synthesized violin, creepy and unsettling, as he gives Crosshair one last opportunity to expose Clone Force 99. But Crosshair resists, and we briefly hear a bit of his theme. Hemlock's theme cuts back in, but this time the strings are plucked more aggressively. I'm not sure on what instrument. It could be a guitar, cello, or even a harp. He continues trying to tempt Crosshair with an offer of freedom, but Crosshair sticks true to his principles, refusing to give up his squad. And we hear Mayday's theme, the person who shaped Crosshair into who he is at this point in the story. At the beginning of the Season 2 finale episodes, Hemlock's theme can be heard playing under the team's discussion about their plan to infiltrate Tarkin's summit on Iriadu, and later his theme once again comes onto the scene as he arrives for his meeting with Tarkin. We hear Hemlock's theme as he's discussing his projects on Tantus with Tarkin and the other Imperial officials, this time sounding even more strange, using a variety of distorted synths and different sounds. We can also hear the clones' theme during this scene, trying to fight through the noise, almost as if it's the clones' last cry for help through the Empire's oppressive grasp over the galaxy. In episode 16 of Season 2, the chord pattern from Hemlock's theme can be faintly heard playing underneath his standoff with Hunter on Ord Mantell, and at the end of the episode, that low, droning sound comes back in, along with his main melody, communicating that he now has the upper hand, and will use Omega to blackmail Nala Se into working on Project Necromancer. Moving on to Season 3, Hemlock's theme makes its presence known from the very beginning, as he ruthlessly leaves his own troops to become monster chow in the jungles of Wayland. We also hear the chords and melody from his theme as he and Nala Se enter and exit the vault. His theme once again comes in at the end of the episode as he chastises Omega for her compassion, calling it nothing more than the naivete of an idealistic child, threatening Crosshair's life in the process. And although we don't see Hemlock in episode 2 of Season 3, I thought I could hear a bit of his theme in the scene where the Bad Batch are trying to escape on the Marauder with the help of the 3 young clone cadets. This makes sense since the Slither Vines were engineered by Hemlock. This could be my ears playing tricks on me, but you guys let me know what you think. Hemlock's theme can be heard in the 3rd episode as the clones are being marched through the corridors and we get our first look at the clone operative CX-1. Now, the sound mixing in this scene is actually kind of weird, and I'm pretty sure this version of Hemlock's theme is one that we heard back in Season 2. Later on, as Hemlock is showing Palpatine Project Necromancer, and Palpatine declares that Hemlock will have access to anything he needs in order to secure the future of the Empire, his theme enters the scene, sounding more triumphant than ever. At the very end of Episode 3, the chord pattern of Hemlock's theme can be heard, representing his new resolve to find Omega, and in the next episode, the low drones can be heard menacingly as he threatens Nala Se for her assistance in Omega's escape, and at the end of the episode, his theme creeps in as he arrives at the crash site of Crosshair and Omega's captured shuttle. We don't actually see Hemlock for the next 5 episodes, yet the Kiners were still able to incorporate his theme at appropriate moments. In Episode 6, while Crosshair is recounting his time spent on Tantus and his involvement in the clone operative program, Hemlock's theme can be heard.
And initiated into a secret deep cover program run by Hemlock.
Likewise, at the end of Episode 7, as Rex reasons with Commander Wolf, Hemlock's theme creeps in once again, reminding us of the disturbing work happening on Tantus. Later in the season, at the beginning of Episode 10, we can hear Hemlock's theme as he's inspecting Project Necromancer, but it's played on strings, sounding almost like something you'd hear in a horror movie or for a vampire. Maybe even Frankenstein? Very much befitting of the mad scientist vibe of his character. In Episode 12, his theme can be very faintly heard under the intense beat first introduced at the end of Episode 11 with Omega's capture, and his theme returns later on, once the Bad Batch have infiltrated the labor camp on Erebus, and Crosshair demands that Rampart reveal to them the location of Tantus. Hemlock is completely absent from Episode 13, however, a tiny bit of his theme can be heard during the docking sequence as the Bad Batch attempt to latch onto the science vessel headed for Tantus, and his theme comes in full force at the beginning of Episode 14 as he orders for the Bad Batch to be shot down, and once again after it is confirmed that they were successfully shot out of the sky. Hemlock's theme is all over the finale, but it starts out sounding more intense and frantic as he orders for a lockdown of the entire base, giving us our first indication that he's slowly beginning to lose control. A more creepy variation of Hemlock's theme, once again played on strings, can be heard as he informs Emery of Omega's escape and loosely threatens her. It returns later in the episode as he is taunting Omega by telling her that the clone's loyalty is their greatest weakness. Finally, as Hemlock takes Omega and tries to make it to his ship, we hear his theme, this time with an altered tempo, making it sound frantic, reflecting Hemlock's own desperation to escape in this moment. And we all know what happens after this point. Hunter and Crosshair take out the thrusters on his ship. Crosshair makes the shot that destroys the binders connecting Hemlock and Omega, and he gets blasted off the catwalk to his doom. So that's it for Dr. Hemlock, and my analysis of his music in The Bad Batch. Obviously, Hemlock is a far less complicated character than Crosshair, because, unlike Crosshair, his music doesn't really develop over the course of the series, and neither does he. He remains the same detestable slimeball throughout the entire show, but that doesn't make his music any less awesome. As previously stated, I think his theme is one of the best villain themes in all of Star Wars. But what did you guys think of my Hemlock music analysis? Were there any variations of his theme that I missed? Was this breakdown not as in-depth as you would have liked? Just whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. Stay tuned for part 2 of my Crosshair music analysis. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.